The silent ambush. The command bridge of the UES Horizon hummed with quiet efficiency as Captain Elara Reeves studied the holographic display hovering before her. The unknown structure rotated slowly in the projection, its alien architecture a stark contrast to human design philosophy. All curves and spirals, where humanity preferred angles and straight lines. "What do we know about it, Commander?" Reeves asked, her eyes never leaving the projection. Commander Takashi Lin stepped forward, his steady presence a comfort in the face of the unknown. "Very little, Captain. It appeared on our scans approximately 6 hours ago. No power signatures, no detectable life forms. For all intents and purposes, it's abandoned." And yet, Reeves let the thought hang in the air. And yet, Lin agreed, it wasn't there during our last survey of this sector 3 months ago. The bridge fell silent. The implications were clear to everyone present. Humanity had been exploring space for nearly a century, establishing colonies across the solar system and venturing into nearby star systems with the development of the Hawking Drive. But in all that time, they had never encountered evidence of another spacefaring civilization. Until now. Lieutenant Sofia Novik cleared her throat. "Captain, I've completed a preliminary analysis of the structure. Its composition includes several elements unknown to our periodic table. Whatever built this, they're operating on a technological level far beyond our own." Reeves nodded slowly. "Recommendations. Protocol dictates we report back to Earth Command and await instructions," Lin offered, though his tone suggested he already knew the captain's decision. "By the time we receive a response, whatever secrets that station holds could be gone," Reeves said. She straightened her uniform and made the decision that would forever change the course of human history. "Prepare a boarding party. I want our best people on this. Lin, you'll lead. Novak, you're our science officer. You're going to. Lieutenant Chen, coordinate security." The crew sprang into action, preparing for humanity's first direct contact with an alien structure. No one noticed the faint energy pulse that emanated from the station when Reeves gave her order, a silent alarm triggered by the human ship's proximity. Hours later, the boarding party's shuttle docked with the alien station. The team moved cautiously through the airlock, environmental suits protecting them from potential biological hazards. The interior was dimly lit by emergency lighting systems that had activated upon their arrival. "This architecture, it's incredible," Novak whispered, her voice filled with awe as she studied the soaring ceilings and intricate wall patterns. "Look at these markings. They could be a written language." Lin remained focused on their mission. "Stay alert. We don't know what we're dealing with here." As they moved deeper into the station, the lighting gradually increased. Dormant systems awakened around them, responding to their presence. Chen's security team maintained vigilance, weapons ready but pointed downward, a gesture of peace should they encounter the station's builders. "Captain," Lin reported through the comms, "the station appears to be powering up in response to our presence. Still no signs of life, but these systems are definitely active now." Back on the horizon, Reeves frowned. "Be careful, Commander. Something doesn't feel right about this." Her instincts proved correct. As the boarding party reached what appeared to be the central command hub of the station, the lights suddenly flared to full brightness. The team shielded their eyes, momentarily blinded. When their vision cleared, they found themselves surrounded. The aliens stood nearly 7 feet tall, their bodies covered in iridescent scales that shifted colors with their movements. Their faces were eyeless, smooth expanses broken only by vertical slits that Novak immediately theorized must be sensory organs. Most disturbing was how they had appeared, not by entering through doorways, but by seemingly materializing from the very walls of the station. "Hold your fire," Lin ordered, raising his empty hands in the universal gesture of peace. "We come as explorers, seeking peaceful contact." The aliens made no response. Instead, they tilted their heads in perfect unison, as though listening to something the humans couldn't hear. Then, with a fluidity that belied their size, they moved toward the boarding party. "Commander." Reeves's voice crackled over the comms. "Report." Lynn never had a chance to respond. The nearest alien reached out, touching his environmental suit. The material dissolved instantly, exposing him to the station atmosphere. He gasped once, then collapsed. Chaos erupted. "Hostiles! Fall back!" Chen shouted, finally raising her weapon. The security team formed a protective circle around Novik, firing at the advancing aliens. Their weapons seemed to have little effect, the energy pulses disappearing into the creature's scales without apparent damage. On the horizon, alarms blared as multiple ships suddenly appeared on their sensors, emerging from what could only be described as tears in space itself. "Captain, we're surrounded," cried the tactical officer. "Reading 7. No, 12 vessels approaching rapidly. They're not broadcasting any identification." Reeves's training took over. "Battle stations. Recall the boarding party immediately. Prepare for emergency departure." But it was already too late. The alien vessels moved with impossible speed, encircling the horizon before its crew could react. The first salvo disabled their engines, leaving them stranded beside the alien station. "It's a trap," Reeves realized, the words bitter on her tongue. The station was bait, and we took it. On the station, the boarding party fought desperately to reach their shuttle. Chen and 2 security officers provided covering fire while Novik dragged Lin's unconscious form. His skin had taken on a grayish pallor, whatever toxin or pathogen in the station's atmosphere working quickly through his system. "Almost there," Chen encouraged them. "Just a few more." Her words cut off as an alien appeared directly behind her, its arm morphing into a blade-like appendage that punched through her chest. The remaining security officers fell in similar fashion, leaving only Novik conscious to witness the slaughter. Trembling, she activated her emergency beacon. "Captain, they're killing everyone. The station, the aliens, it was all a trap. They'd wanted us here. They've been waiting for us." Back on the horizon, the situation was equally dire. The alien ships had ceased firing after disabling their engines, instead launching boarding craft that attached to the hull like parasites, burning through the metal to create entry points. "Seal all bulkheads," Reeves ordered. "All personnel, arm yourselves. Prepare to repel boarders." The first alien breached the ship's perimeter minutes later, emerging onto the engineering deck. The crew fought bravely, but their weapons proved as ineffective as the boarding parties had been. The creatures moved through the ship with terrifying efficiency, their touch dissolving protective gear and delivering a toxin that paralyzed their victims instantly. Reeves stood on the bridge, sidearm in hand, as the bulkhead doors finally gave way. The aliens poured in, moving with that same fluid grace. She fired until her weapon overheated, then drew her officer's blade, determined to die on her feet. The lead alien approached her, its featureless face betraying no emotion. It raised a 3-fingered hand, and to Reeves's surprise, spoke in perfect English. "Your species is interesting, Captain Ilara Reeves. You possess courage disproportionate to your capabilities." The voice emerged not from the creature itself, but seemed to form directly in her mind. "We are the Vex. We have been studying your transmissions for decades, learning your languages, your tactics, your weaknesses. This encounter was inevitable. We simply accelerated the timeline." "Why?" Reeves demanded, the blade steady in her hand despite the fear coursing through her. "If you've been watching us, you know we seek peaceful contact with other civilizations." The alien scales rippled in what might have been amusement. "Peace is inefficient. Resources are finite. New species must be evaluated, then either subjugated or eliminated. Your kind shows potential for the former. You will serve as valuable data points." With a gesture from the alien, 2 of its companions moved forward, reaching for Reeves. She slashed with her blade, drawing an iridescent fluid from one of the creatures, the first sign that they could be harmed. The wounded alien recoiled, its scales flashing red. A surge of hope rushed through her. They weren't invincible after all. Before she could capitalize on this discovery, a barrage of energy pulses from the second alien struck her chest. Darkness claimed her vision as she collapsed to the deck, one final thought echoing in her mind. Humanity had to be warned. As consciousness faded, Reeves didn't see the emergency protocols she'd activated just before the bridge was breached. Deep in the Horizon systems, a distress beacon activated, broadcasting the ship's sensor logs and final moments toward Earth. The Horizon was lost, but its sacrifice would not be in vain. Miles away from the captured Horizon, a small maintenance shuttle drifted among the debris field created by the initial attack. Inside, 3 surviving crew members, engineering specialist Mira Santos, medical officer Dr. James Harper, and communications technician Liam Torres, watched in horror as the alien ships began to systematically dismantle their home vessel. "They're harvesting it," Santos whispered, her voice hollow with shock, "taking it apart piece by piece." Harper's hands worked steadily, treating a wound on Torres's arm while his mind raced. "We need to get back to Earth. Warn them about what happened here." Torres shook his head grimly. "The shuttle's FTL communicator was damaged in our escape. We can't send a message, and this craft isn't equipped with a Hawking drive. We're stranded." Santos' eyes never left the scene of destruction outside their viewport. "Maybe not. Look, they're not just dismantling the Horizon. They're studying it, learning about us." Her expression hardened with determination, "which means we have time to learn about them." The 3 survivors exchanged looks, a silent agreement passing between them. They might be outmatched and outnumbered, but humanity would not go quietly into extinction. The Vex had set their trap, but they would soon discover that humans were the most dangerous prey in the galaxy when cornered. Turning the tables. 3 days had passed since the fall of the UES Horizon. Inside the maintenance shuttle, now hidden within the debris field of a nearby asteroid, the 3 survivors worked tirelessly to understand their enemy. "They're methodical," Mira Santos observed, reviewing the sensor data they'd managed to gather. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, eyes rimmed with exhaustion but burning with intensity. "Every 6 hours, they send out patrol ships in a standard search pattern. They're looking for us." Dr. James Harper nodded, his medical training giving him insight into alien biology that proved invaluable. "And I've been analyzing the visual data we collected during the attack. Those color changes in their scales aren't just for show. It's some kind of communication system, possibly tied to their emotional or physiological state." "That's not all," Liam Torres added, his bandaged arm held close to his body as he worked at the shuttle's jury-rigged communications array. "I've been monitoring their transmissions. Can't understand the language, but the patterns are revealing. When Captain Reeves managed to wound one of them, their communication frequency changed dramatically. More urgent, more chaotic." Santos' eyes narrowed. "So they can be hurt, but our standard weapons barely scratched them." "It wasn't the weapon itself," Harper mused, replaying the footage. "It was the captain's blade. An actual physical blade, not an energy weapon. Their scales seemed to absorb or deflect energy, but physical penetration wounded them." Torres looked up from his console. "Primitive technology against an advanced species. Sounds like a losing proposition to me." "Not necessarily," Santos countered, a plan already forming in her mind. "We have one advantage they don't expect us to use: innovation born of desperation." The next hours were spent in furious preparation. Santos, using her engineering background, cannibalized non-essential shuttle systems to modify their limited weaponry. Harper analyzed the alien physiology from their limited footage, identifying potential vulnerabilities. Torres worked to decrypt the alien communication patterns, searching for any tactical advantage. "I think I've got something," Harper announced, pointing to a freeze frame of the wounded alien. "See how the scales react. There's a momentary disruption in their pattern when physically damaged. And look at this." He pointed to another image. "The way they emerge from walls, how they seem to phase through solid matter. What if their molecular structure is different from ours? What if they exist partially in another phase state? Santos considered this. So energy weapons pass through them because they're not fully in our physical dimension. Exactly, Harper confirmed. But solid objects, like Captain Reeves's blade, still interact with them physically. Torres joined them, excitement breaking through his exhaustion. That fits with what I'm seeing in their communications. I've isolated a specific frequency they use when boarding ships. I think it's the signal that allows them to phase through solid matter. Can we disrupt it? Santos asked. Torres nodded slowly. Maybe. If we could broadcast a counter-frequency, it might force them fully into our physical dimension, making them vulnerable to conventional weapons, Santos finished, a spark of hope igniting within her. We can build a transmitter using parts from our communication array, but that means no distress calls, no communication with Earth. Earth is already lost if we don't stop these things here, Harper said grimly. We have to try. Their plan took shape over the next day. Using the shuttle's small fabricator, Santos constructed crude but effective physical weapons, spears and blades fashioned from the shuttle's interior paneling, hardened using the environmental system's ceramic components. Torres modified their communications array into a disruption transmitter, designed to broadcast the counter-frequency across a limited range. Harper prepared medical countermeasures against the alien toxin based on his analysis of the footage showing its effects. We'll only get one chance at this, Santos warned as they finalized preparations. The transmitter has enough power for maybe 10 minutes of broadcast. After that, we're back to being outmatched. Torres checked the alien patrol schedule he'd meticulously documented. The next patrol passes near the asteroid field in 3 hours. 2 ships, standard complement of what we assume are 6 VEX per vessel. Harper distributed his makeshift antitoxin injectors. These should provide some protection against their touch, though I wouldn't recommend testing it unnecessarily. The plan was simple but desperate. They would use the shuttle to approach one of the patrol ships, broadcasting the disruption signal as they drew near. If Torres's theory was correct, the aliens would be forced fully into physical space, making them vulnerable to Santos's improvised weapons. They would board the alien vessel, neutralize its crew, and use it to approach the main fleet undetected. As the patrol drew near, the 3 survivors shared a final moment of quiet determination. For the horizon, Santos said softly, naming their lost ship and crew. For humanity, Harper added. The shuttle emerged from hiding, thrusters firing at minimal power to avoid immediate detection. They drifted toward the patrol route, systems mostly powered down to minimize their signature. When the first alien vessel appeared against the backdrop of stars, Torres initiated the disruption broadcast. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The alien ship lurched in space, its smooth movements suddenly erratic. Through the shuttle viewport, they could see the hull of the vessel rippling, as though struggling to maintain cohesion. It's working, Torres whispered, disbelief and hope mingling in his voice. They're being forced fully into our physical dimension. Santos guided their shuttle into the alien ship's blind spot, matching velocity until they could attach to what appeared to be an external airlock. The 3 donned their environmental suits, gripped their makeshift weapons, and prepared to board. Remember, Harper cautioned, even vulnerable, they're dangerous. Stay together, strike quickly, and don't hesitate. The airlock cycled open with surprising ease. The VEX, so confident in their advanced technology, had apparently never considered the need for security against primitive boarding tactics. Inside, the ship was in chaos. The VEX moved sluggishly, their normally fluid motions jerky and uncoordinated. Their scales flash erratic patterns of color, suggesting distress or pain. The first alien turned toward them, raising an arm that began to morph into a weapon. Santos didn't give it the chance to finish. She lunged forward, driving her improvised spear through its midsection. The creature emitted a high-pitched keening sound that reverberated through their minds, the first indication that the VEX could feel pain. The battle that followed was brief but brutal. Without their phasing ability, the Vex proved surprisingly vulnerable to physical attacks. Harper's antitoxin worked, protecting them when desperate aliens attempted to touch them with their dissolving touch. Torres maintained the disruptor's function while fighting, ensuring the Vex remained vulnerable. Within minutes, they had secured the bridge of the alien vessel. Torres worked quickly to understand the controls, his communications background proving invaluable in deciphering the alien interface. "I've got it," he announced, manipulating what appeared to be a navigation system. "I can set a course back to the main fleet. They won't question one of their own returning." "What about the other patrol ship?" Harper asked, concerned. "Already taken care of," Santos replied, pointing to the view screen where the second patrol vessel continued on its route, unaware of their companion's fate. "They didn't raise an alarm. I don't think they can comprehend that we could take one of their ships." The captured vessel moved smoothly toward the main Vex fleet, now gathered around both the space station and the partially dismantled Horizon. As they approached, Torres modified their disruptor to extend its range, preparing for the next phase of their desperate plan. "Once we're within range of their command ship, I'll activate the disruptor at maximum power," Torres explained. "It should affect every Vex vessel within half a kilometer. They'll all be vulnerable at once." "And then?" Harper asked, though he already knew the answer. Santos' expression was grim but determined. "Then we crash this ship directly into their command vessel, detonating the fuel cells on impact. The explosion should trigger a chain reaction through their suddenly vulnerable fleet." "A suicide mission," Harper noted without judgment. "Not necessarily," Torres countered. "The escape pods on this vessel are similar enough to their shuttlecraft that they shouldn't raise alarms. We launch just before impact, drifting among the debris until we can make our escape." As their stolen ship approached the fleet, a communication request came through. The Vex were hailing them. Santos nodded to Torres, who activated the disruptor instead of responding. Immediately, alerts flashed across the alien controls as ships throughout the fleet began experiencing the same disruption effects they had witnessed earlier. "Now," Santos shouted, overriding the ship's controls and setting it on a collision course with the massive command vessel at the center of the fleet. The three raced to the escape pod, launching themselves clear just as their stolen ship accelerated toward its target. The impact was spectacular. Their vessel punctured the command ship's hull, the detonation of its fuel cells creating a blinding flash that engulfed both vessels. As predicted, the explosion triggered a chain reaction, the disrupted Vex ships unable to maintain their partial phase state under the stress of the detonation. One by one, they erupted into fireballs or collapsed in on themselves, their advanced technology turned against them by three desperate humans, armed with little more than courage and improvisation. From their escape pod, drifting among the expanding debris field, Santos, Harper, and Torres watched in stunned silence as the entire Vex fleet was systematically destroyed. The alien space station, without its protecting vessels, began to break apart, sections of it collapsing as though the structure itself depended on the same phase-shifting technology as its creators. "We did it," Harper whispered, disbelief evident in his voice. "We actually did it." Santos nodded, calculating their next move. "The pod has basic life support and minimal propulsion. If we conserve power and recycle everything, we might survive long enough for a rescue mission to find us." "That's assuming Earth received the Horizon's distress signal," Torres pointed out. "And assuming they send help." "They will," Santos said with quiet conviction. "Humanity doesn't abandon its own." As if in answer to her faith, a ping sounded from the pod's rudimentary sensor array. A ship was approaching, but not from the direction of Earth. It emerged from behind the same asteroid field where they had hidden, a sleek vessel unlike anything in the human fleet. "Another alien species?" Harper asked, tension returning to his voice. The vessel halted a respectful distance away, then broadcast on a standard human emergency frequency. "Earth vessel, this is the Novan scout ship Starwatcher. We monitored your conflict with the Vex. Assistance is offered. The three survivors exchanged glances of shock and hope. You're not with them. Santos responded cautiously. The Vex are a plague upon this galaxy, came the reply, genuine emotion evident in the translated voice. For centuries, they have hunted and consumed emerging civilizations. Few have ever managed to defeat them as you have done today. We have been fighting a defensive war against them for generations. What you accomplished with a maintenance shuttle and 3 crew members, our entire fleet has failed to achieve. We got lucky, Torres replied modestly. No, the alien voice countered. You demonstrated the reason the Vex feared your species enough to set this trap. Humans possess an ingenuity and adaptability that threatens their dominance. They sought to eliminate you before you realize your potential. Instead, you have proven that potential beyond any doubt. As the Novan vessel prepared to dock with their escape pod, Santos looked back at the expanding field of debris that had once been the Vex fleet. The aliens had set a perfect trap for humanity, using their superior technology and calculated strategy to lure them in. They had considered every variable except one: the human capacity to innovate when facing impossible odds. They came to judge whether we should be subjugated or eliminated, Harper reflected. I wonder what their final assessment was. Santos smiled grimly as the Novan ship extended its docking tube. I think we made that decision for them.